What's up? Today I'm happy to share with you how to crush the Scandinavian defense in just about 8 moves. And on top of that, I'd love to give you a complete overview of this opening gambit, because I see that people playing it just relying on a single little trick, and if it doesn't work, they're just busted, they're going down and they lose. But I want to share with you how to play even against your opponent who is aware of the trap and how to outsmart them anyway. Anyway, let's go right into it. So the Scandinavian defense occurs when black goes pawn d5, and after that you take, black usually recaptures, then you play knight c3, attacking this queen, and the classical variation goes queen to a5. In this case, the usual way is going d4, but there is an interesting gambit line pawn b4. And what's really funny about this variation is that although the gambit is known for at least 20 years, and we're gonna see the first game where it was played, people still keep falling into this trap over and over again. And according to the database, in most games, black actually keep failing it up to this date. So, first of all, white is attacking the queen, therefore black needs to do something about that. Probably they're going to capture. And although you lost a pawn, but this is a classical gambit style where you sacrifice a pawn so that you get more open files for your pieces. You also keep attacking black, keep gaining temples by attacking this queen, and so you hope for quick development and attack. So that's the general overview. Now, more specifically, you go knight b5 here. You keep attacking, this time you're threatening to capture this pawn and to fork the king and the rook. And for that reason, black needs to do something about this pawn. Of course, black can move theoretically the king somewhere here, but that would expose the king. If the knight moves here to a6 to defend the pawn that way, that will put the knight on the edge of the board, which is not recommended to do strategically. So the move which most players play here is the correct one, queen to a5. Defending the pawn that way, and also putting the queen back to safety just in case so that white can't attack it here somehow. After queen a5, you play the move which seems like just a developing move, bishop c4. And at this point, black feels happy. Black is a pawn up, and your attack is seemingly over. So black thinks, okay, let me just get rid of this annoying knight, and I can simply enjoy a position where I'm a pawn up. And most players play here pawn c6, which is a standard move in the Scandinavian defense in general, but in this particular case, it's a losing mistake. The other one, which is equally bad, is pawn a6, and it's also equally popular. But let's start with the move pawn c6, and once again, after that, I'm going to share with you what to do if your opponent is aware of the trap and how you can win anyway, because I see that otherwise people just play it as a hope chess, just relying on this one little trick and that's it. But that's not really good, because I mean, if you just rely on a single little trick, then you're going to lose, unfortunately, if your opponent is aware of it. Anyway, let's first see the main trap. After pawn c6, there is a crushing blow, bishop takes f7. Certainly very hard to see it, so even advanced level players will probably overlook these tactics because, yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to spot it during the real game. And after king takes, white follows up with queen h5 check. It still seems unclear why would white keep sacrificing material, because although this is check to the king, seems like black can cover the king, in different ways. For example, just pawn g6. Looks like the white's attack is over. And indeed, you can't attack the king anymore, but the whole point of keeping the queen here was not only to attack the king, but also to attack the queen over here on a5. And so here, you can take advantage of the discover check when you go knight to d6, which is check to the king, and you open up this line for your queen to pick up black's queen on a5. So after pawn takes, you take over here on a5, and you just won a queen and the game. Going back one move in the actual game where this trap was played first, black noticed the threat, and black realized that they gotta address this discover check threat somehow. For that reason, the king cannot also move to e6, because then knight d4 will still be the check, and it still loses the queen after that. So king e6 is not an option either. The only way for black to get rid of potential check is to play king to f6. But of course, there is a major downside of putting your king so advanced and so exposed, is that white can simply keep attacking it, which is what white did. Bishop b2, check to the king. Now in order to cover it, black has to play e5. Now bishop captures this pawn, check to the king once again. And as the king moves somewhere, doesn't matter, e6 or e7, you follow up with knight to c7, which is an extremely beautiful position actually. It's really satisfying to play this. The checkmating threat is not easy to see at first. You may actually think about this yourself for a second. The checkmating threat is queen e8, and that would be checkmate. Really beautiful. But besides that, if black covers that somehow, If by playing g6 or something else, that fails to yet another discover check. Let's say bishop d6 check to the king, and once again we're opening up this line and we're picking up the queen. So, like, a really astonishing combination, and well, it wins. It's also really effective. If you're gonna play this gambit, you gotta know a few other lines here. After pawn takes d5, queen takes, knight c3, well, first of all, of course black can move their queen somewhere else, not only to a5. For example, queen d8 or something else. I've got another video up there in the sky where you can check it later with other traps in the Scandinavian defense in other side variations. But for this video, let's stick to the classical line queen a5, and we're gonna gambit the pawn here, pawn b4, queen takes, knight b5. One common error that I see here in this position is that some players believe that there is a move queen h5 that wins just as well. We know that the correct one is bishop takes f7 first, right, and then queen h5. But I see that some players play queen h5 right away, thinking that it's basically the same stuff. We're threatening queen takes f7, thanks to this bishop support. But in addition to that, it still threatens knight d6, check to the king, and it opens up this line to win the queen. So at first it looks like really it wins. For example, if something like g6 to block this diagonal, then indeed knight d6 and we win the queen because this is check. But here it's important to know that it's not the case. In fact, black can win the game here if they know how to respond properly. The way for black to get rid of this discovered check is just to move the king away. And after that, there is a similar problem happening for white here. Now this knight is pinned to the queen. Can't move anymore, and for that reason black is going to capture it on the next move. Of course, here queen takes f7 looks very advantageous for white, but here there is a move knight to h6, which defends this bishop and also attacks the queen, and this knight is still hanging. So for that reason black is going to win this knight on the next move and will get a material advantage and should win the game. So that is a common error. That's not how white wins here. Alright, now let's take a look at proper moves of black. We know that tempting moves such as pawn c6 or pawn a6 both lose to these tactics bishop takes f7, followed by queen h5. So that's how black lose. What should black do instead? If someone turns on Stockfish on Elite Chess, then Stockfish suggests the move knight to c6. And this indeed stops white's tactics, because from here the knight defends this queen, and therefore black can't lose the queen anymore in the following variations. And so the sacrifice does not work for white. What do you do then? I recommend the move bishop b2, because in this case, the drawback of keeping the knight here on c6 without playing pawn to c6 is that this queen on a5 is a little bit restricted, and potentially you want to play bishop c3 and someone pressure it there. Let's not forget that the queen should defend this pawn. And so, although theoretically, full disclosure, this whole variation is risky for white. Do not play it against well-prepared, strong opponent in a serious game if you bet a lot of money on it. But for a casual blitz game in the internet, it's perfectly fine, because still it's tricky, it's still not easy for black to figure out what to do here. For example, in this position, the most common move for black here is knight to f6, which is wrong, because then you actually execute your threat, bishop c3, hitting the queen. The queen needs to keep guarding this pawn, so it's gonna go back, and now you play rook b1, and which puts this potential x-ray on the queen. And it can't run away because it's gotta keep guarding the pawn. So if black goes something like pawn a6, trying to somehow get rid of your annoying pieces, you're gonna still use the discover check. It's somehow funny how black always loses their queen to discover check, even though in this case it's going along this file instead of this horizontal line. Okay, so knight d6 check. After black captures it, you win the queen anyway. And black's position is also destroyed. You can capture here as well. And yeah, black's position is completely ruined, and you want some material, so let's say queen h5, and that should be easily winning for white. There is also one funny trick here in this position. If black tries playing pawn a6, trying to get rid of this annoying knight, instead of moving it backwards, you may play pawn a4. And looks like you're just losing this knight here, but if black captures it, then after pawn takes, black actually loses the game, because once again they're in trouble with their queen. And if the queen moves somewhere, doesn't matter where it goes, then after rook takes a8, you're gonna capture really a whole lot here, everything, right, all on the 8th rank, and the knight is still hanging here. So that is completely devastating. Perhaps the most prudent way for black here is playing knight to f6. From here, it controls this h5 square so that white can't rush into the attack anymore, and black indeed secures an extra pawn without any quick or easy attack for white. In this case, what I do recommend that you play is you don't try to, to pull off some nasty tactics anymore. It doesn't work, but you just keep playing in a usual Gambit style where you sacrifice just a little pawn. It's not such a big material deficit, so you may just keep developing your pieces, still hoping for more lost in initiative. According to the database here, after knight f3, the most common move of black is bishop to g4. Then in castle, again, we want to finalize our development quickly and simply take advantage of these different open files and diagonals and try to have some attack. Here, black usually goes pawn c6, driving your knight away. Most people play here knight to c3, but I recommend a more forward move, knight to d4. Again, let's not forget that we're a pawn down, so we do want to play more aggressively and create threats. And from here, it has greater potential to create threats compared to a more backward square on c3, so knight d4 is the way to go. Black here usually goes pawn a6, and now you start attacking. So play rook b1 first, you hit this pawn. Some of your opponents will actually blunder it, especially if they're below 1000, they're highly likely to blunder it, and that's cool. If not, they're gonna play queen c7. Now you play pawn h3, attacking this bishop. We keep attacking. Most of your opponents are gonna play bishop h5 because that's the standard response to pawn h3. And in this moment, you've got another standard tactical shot to start a really powerful attack. This is a move bishop takes e6. Let's not forget that we are way ahead in development. Black mostly stuck here with their pieces on their initial squares, and white is fully mobilized, therefore you're ready to go for an attack. Black's king is here in the middle of the board, so we want to open up the e-file and attack it. After pawn takes, knight takes e6, black is actually already lost. Now the queen is under the attack. If it moves somewhere, you just play rook e1 and you go after this king. Now you threaten various discovered checks here with this knight, so probably black will wish to move their king away, but that fails also to, lots of different things. White can go pawn g4 to neutralize this pin and to get rid of this bishop. Bishop goes back. In this game, white play rook takes b7 check now. Check to the king. Knight d7, and although it was a blitz game, but white played really spectacular chess, white played pawn g5, keep attacking, knight went away, and white finished it off with a little beautiful combo, rook takes d7. It's not even a sacrifice, because after queen takes, white follows up with knight to e5, forking the king and queen, and black loses. After king e6, white was not even kind enough to just win the queen, but they played queen g4 first, which is even stronger, and after that you're going to capture the queen for nothing, and black's king is going to be checkmated very soon. So that's how you can devastate even an experienced opponent who is aware of the trap, and you still find the way to create a powerful attack. Of course, if you're going to play this opening operation, I'm curious to know how it worked out for you, so please share your feedback and comments below with me. I'm really curious. Also, the video that I mentioned previously with the 7 best opening traps in the Scandinavian Defense is available over here, and you may check out some other variations that I didn't cover in this video. And finally, if you want to elevate your attacking and tactical skills overall, you may attend my free masterclass by clicking the link over there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.